What I want to talk about in this video is the sleep routine that we established pretty early on with her. So I posted on Instagram a couple weeks ago, I think now, and if anybody had any questions that they wanted me to answer on the docuseries. And one of the things that kept coming up for a couple of the inboxes was that how did we prepare for sleep? What is our sleep like? How is it going in the middle of the night with pumping and breastfeeding? And what is her routine, etc. So usually one of the main concerns when you have a baby is what happens to your sleep? It just goes away. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So when we brought her home initially, I was going to sleep with her in my room in the bassinet, and Michael was going to sleep in another room because he was going to work. And so when a newborn comes home, you need to feed them every 2 hours until they get back to that birth weight. Actually, coincidentally, the first night we came home, our night support came over to kind of help us get established before the holiday started. And it was pretty funny because I remember we got home and she was like, okay, we're just kind of talking and whatnot. And she's like, well, what's your plan? And I was like, there was no plan. The plan was to get the baby to go to sleep and hopefully it all works out, right? So I found that kind of funny because I was like, oh, do people have a plan? It's probably a good idea. So my plan was to have her in the bassinet by my bed for 6 months because, that's what they recommend. And for safe sleep, or one of the options for safe sleep, and not to have them in the bed, and et cetera, et cetera. So, and then we have a crib, but it's in another room. So I thought eventually we'll transfer her to the crib. Well, the first night with the night support was great because she was, there and helping and guiding. But then it was the holidays, it was Thanksgiving, and she left, and I didn't know what the hell to expect. So FYI, if you don't have a baby, babies have this thing called active sleep. And so for us, there's a part that we develop and we go essentially paralyzed in our sleep. Well, they don't have that yet. So they kick and scream and they're loud in their sleep. So every time she was making noise, I'd get up and check the bassinet. Well, that's a lot. And then you're only sleeping, maybe an hour, 30 minutes, because get up, feed them. That takes, 20 minutes to 30 minutes. Put them back down. Then you've got to get settled. So I was just up and down the whole night. And it was hard because you don't know what to do and they're feeding. And for me, I felt like she didn't actually like the bassinet, that, she was just uncomfortable in there. And I wasn't sure because, I don't really know her. You don't really know your baby, in my opinion, or, in my experience, I should say, in those first weeks because you're getting to know each other. And so for me, she slept the best on me, on my chest and next to me. And in the hospital, actually, she slept in the bed with me because the first night she spat up and it freaked me out because I was like, oh my gosh, what if she chokes and then dies? So she had always slept next to me. And that was really hard because a lot of what you see out there is don't have the baby sleep in bed with you. Make sure they're in a bassinet, make sure they're swaddled. And it's really more so because of just safety concerns, and what if you roll over on top of them, all of that. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm breaking all these rules that you do with the baby. And that led me to reach out to some of my old clients and people that I know that had kids and just be like, how the fuck do you do this? Because for me, it was really hard to put her in the bassinet. I wasn't sleeping and I'd sleep much better with her in bed with me. And then I felt like she didn't like it, right? So I had her sleep in bed with me until the night support came back after the holidays, after Thanksgiving. And so the night support was wonderful. So she would come, we had a camera set up, so she would watch her on the monitor. She was still in the bassinet next to my bed. She would come in, kind of get her settled if she was restless, and then I'd wake up to feed. And so once she was back to birth weight, we kind of let her lead the feedings and the wake time. So I stopped setting an alarm at some point. Then eventually the night support gal, she recommended, she's like, look, why don't we try having her sleep in the crib in the room that the night support's in? And I was really uneasy about it. It just didn't feel, I don't know how to, it just felt odd, or felt uneasy. And so we ended up doing that. So one night I was like, okay, let's do it. And Michael was like, we should try. And so we tried with her in the crib because she's really noisy when she sleeps and just in general. And the night support was like, I think you'll just sleep so much better. She was like, I think you'll just sleep so much better. So I was finally, it took me like 2 weeks, honestly. So I was like, let's try it. And so we did it and I slept so good. So then each night that the night support came on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights, Olivia would sleep in the crib with her in the room, and then she would bring the baby to me to feed. So at this point, I am still nursing every night, so breastfeeding every night. I'm not pumping. And that's certainly an option too. So then on the nights that the night support wasn't here, I would have Olivia sleep in the bassinet with me. Well, that would restart like my poor sleep. And so it was just really frustrating. And eventually at some point, Michael and I were talking. He's like, why don't you just try it? Why don't you just try having her in the crib? And for me, I was like, well, then it's inconvenient because now I got to get up, go in the other room, get her, go back to my bedroom, nurse her. And then if she doesn't fall right back asleep, I've got to go to the rocking chair that we have out in the living room because the night support sleeps in that room. So we don't move the rocking chair in that room yet. And so it was like, I was going to be in a lot of different places throughout the night. We did it one night and I slept so good. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay. And I told myself one of the things was, I don't have to do this. I can change my mind at any point in the night. So like if she's waking up in distress, if I'm in distress, like she can come back in the bassinet with me because I kept it out, or I can put her back in bed with me. So, but it ended up being really nice. So she would wake up probably about every 3 hours. So usually there was like a 9, 12, 3 o'clock feed, just to give an example. But now that we're almost 3 months, I think we're 2.5 months now. We're 2 months and some change. I don't really keep track anymore of the weeks. She usually does one big feed around midnight to 1. So, and we put her to bed between 6 and 7. She usually passes out because I wake up pretty early. So she needs to wake up really early for our kind of day to get started. So between 6 and 7, she's going to bed. Before that, leading up to around 3 to 4 o'clock, she starts to get fussy. But at that time, we're kind of winding down from work in the day. We're just kind of watching TV or hanging out together. Then, the lights are dimmed and everything. And I take her in my bedroom to feed for the night feedings and like the evening feedings. In the day, I try and feed on the couch just to kind of create a separation of like, it's nighttime, we're going to bed. I don't know if she logically knows that, but I do. And so it makes a difference, in my opinion, I think. So I'll take her in the bedroom for her last feed, put her down for bed, and then she sometimes wakes up around 9, just kind of restless, put the pacifier in, she's back asleep. So feeding between 12 and 1, and then she usually wakes up between 3 and 4 for her feeding. But now that's starting to get later. And then she's usually up between, we'll say 5:30 and 6:30 for the day. So it's really interesting because I had to learn, one, that active sleep is a thing and babies are noisy at night. But 2, I had to learn that just because they're awake doesn't mean they're hungry. They don't necessarily need to be fed right away. And that was one thing where I would feed her and she wouldn't really eat, and then she passes out, and then like our sleep got all messed up. So for me on my sleep, I go to bed between 7 and 8. I used to go to bed around 8, 8:30, but I brought it up an hour because it gives me the opportunity to get 6 to 8 hours of sleep throughout the night. Because if I wake up, say, between 4 and 5 and I'm in bed by 7, there's more opportunity for more sleep for me. Now, that's something that works for my family. It may not work for a lot of families. But for me, it's really important, one, that I get sleep. And I notice a huge difference. It's really interesting because I do take my weight every day. And on nights I have really bad sleep. And now there's like your spectrum of newborn sleep with a baby, right? But on my really, really bad nights of sleep, my weight is higher. On my good nights of sleep, my weight is lower. So I am like, oh, that's more interesting data for me to just be aware of. I also make sure, I'm not eating past 7 o'clock. I have plenty of water throughout the day, but I do have water by my bed at night because I do get thirsty. In the beginning, I was having nightly snacks, and I usually would have a banana that was just easy and quick. But now that's kind of gone down because I'm trying to get enough calories in throughout the day. I was at 2,600 calories, and then this week I actually hired my nutrition coach back again, and I'll do an episode about that and why. So now I'm at 2,730 calories for on average for the days. So yeah, let me get to those questions so I can make sure that those get answered for us. So one of the questions was, what am I telling myself with round-the-clock breastfeeding for the first couple of weeks before being able to pump? Honestly, I think there's such an adrenaline rush when you first get home that you're not really thinking about it. More so, it was getting comfortable of essentially just being topless all day in your own home, which is odd, and just learning your flow and your boobs and your latching. Like, there's so many other things that are going through your mind, or that were going through my mind, rather than being able to pump right away. Like pumping, like I wanted to get the other things settled before I was worried about pumping. And then once that was settled, I was pumping. In the beginning, I'll be transparent, I was only pumping once a day after the morning feed for 10 minutes just to start a supply, or a backup supply, or whatever I'm doing with the milk. And then now I only pump if she feeds from a bottle. Like, so for example, she started having other people care for her while I go back to my office job. So every time she feeds, I pump. And so there are different ways of feeding your child. There's exclusively breastfeeding, breast and bottle, exclusively pumping, and so exclusive bottle, and then there's formula. It's whatever works for you and your family. Me doing like combo is really what's been super beneficial, because I feel like I can still go out. I haven't really successfully breastfed in public. I usually just do a bottle because it's easier, and then I'll just pump in the car on the way home or to the next stop. Next question. How do you keep going without a negative outlook? This is a hard one to answer, because every day there's something negative that you have to reframe, I feel like. Or for me, I should stop saying you, but for me, I think it was really about preparation for this phase too, right? Like, I knew I wasn't going to get sleep. I knew I needed support. I knew that's where I wanted a lot of my financial resources to go, was support. But I think also a lot of the benefit that I have is I have so many people I can reach out to when I feel like I'm stuck on a problem, or that are in the same pits as I am. So I really don't have a good answer for that, because I think everybody's so individualistic. I've had clients that certainly had a much more negative experience and outlook, but I think sometimes it depends on the support. But I've also had clients that had a much more negative kind of like baby situation. Not saying that their baby was bad, but like they have really bad GERD or reflux, or maybe were in preemie and had to be in the NICU, or maybe their spouse isn't as supportive. So yeah, support was really big. I also thankfully and currently have a really easy baby. She sleeps pretty well. The only time she gets fussy is if like she's hungry or is done with that activity or whatever we're doing. So she's pretty easy to read. She doesn't cry a whole bunch for no reason. There's usually a reason, and she's adorable. So, but I also wonder if part of that is like a co-regulation thing. I also wonder if part of that is like a co-regulation thing where I'm trying to be calm and neutral. I try and be like as calm and neutral as I can with her. And I feel like that has helped us a lot with, as far as having a negative outlook. And honestly, like when I have a negative outlook, I just try and think of like, this is a learning experience. Like, for example, when I talked about like she would wake up and I would automatically feed her, but then it kind of fucked with the schedule for the day and her feeding because she wasn't actually hungry. Like I started to be like, fuck, I should have known. And it's like, we're just learning. That was good to know. So maybe tonight what I'll try is, just hold her for a little bit and see if she falls back asleep instead. So I just think of everything as, oh, that was interesting to learn. Okay, so now let's try something else. Instead of, oh crap, I shouldn't have fed her. Now she's up. Now the day is all thrown off. Like, if the day's thrown off, the day's thrown off. At one of her feedings, she's going to get caught up and we'll be A-okay, So yeah, and I think she just peed on me. Or is it drool? It's either drool or pee. Who knows? I am really surprised by how I'm doing mentally. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm shocked. And I think I ideally would love a schedule, but I honestly think me not having any schedule, as far as like when she goes to sleep, when she wakes up, when she plays and all of that, has helped me. to be like, well, all right, and then learning like what she tends to do. So another question. I feel like it made a difference having your night help change and put the baby to sleep after you breastfed? So yes, so I could get a little extra bit of sleep. Yes, the answer is yes, absolutely, yes, 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 yes. The night help, I wish everybody could implement it in their lives. It has been so helpful, but not only that, it's been so great of a learning experience because I don't think I would have put her in the crib without that suggestion. I think I would have just sucked it up for the 6 months because that's what I read is best, right? I don't think because what I learned was, if her name's Victoria, so if Victoria didn't come in the room to check on her, I don't need to check on her, right? But if Victoria came in the room, I know, okay, so what did baby do differently that I could check on her for? Because if it was up to me, I would check on her for every single like bump, noise, movement, anything. But I learned like if Victoria doesn't come in, I don't need to check on her. She's also been helpful just as far as like tips and tricks and like kind of talking through things like probiotics and switching between boobs and feeling engorged and options. Like it is an option for me to pump in the night and her to bottle feed her so I could get even more sleep. But I prefer to breastfeed her. It is an option for Michael to get up and bottle feed her and pump her. It is an option for us to just do exclusively breastfeeding. It is an option for just anything. Like, because even I was talking to her about the baby sleeping in bed with me, and she had a website that she uses as a reference for if your baby's going to sleep in bed with you, here's some safe ways to do it, right? So she's just been a great resource. Like, she's technically called a newborn care specialist, which is someone who specializes in the first, I think, 12 to 16 weeks of childhood. And I mean, I cannot recommend her enough. She's so sweet, always on time. So she comes like 10 to 6, which is nice because sometimes if I wake up early, she'll hold the baby, just hold her in the morning so I can eat, right? If I was pumping at night, she would clean the pump parts because that's something else that you have to consider. So it's just a helpful person. It was weird at first, I'm not going to lie, of like handing my baby to someone to change my baby while I'm just sitting there and watching them. But after a while, you get used to it. You know, it's just like one of those things. It's kind of weird to always have your boobs out. But after a while, you're like, whatever. It's just easier than putting on a bra, putting on a shirt, dirtying the shirt, getting milk on the shirt, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, that is our sleep experience so far. Things are changing because I am back at work, or in my office job, rather. I haven't stopped coaching people. So that's going to be different. So I'm waiting to gather a bit more data and experience and weeks on that of like how I prepared for it. And because I'm learning like each time I go in, like there's a little shift of what I do and what I bring. And then for her too. Is she sleeping? Yeah, she is. You want to see? Isn't she so cute? Oh. So I'm going to have a content on that of like how I prepare for work and recommendations, because I thought I was going to bring my like portable. Nope. I'm bringing my Spectra. And I was like, oh man, I'm bringing all this shit back and forth each day. I was like, nope. So I got double parts or backup parts, whatever. So yeah. So if you found this information helpful, be sure to like and subscribe to the content. If you have any questions or comments, put them below in the comment section. I'll get them answered for you. If you found this video helpful, be sure to share it with a friend and get that word out. I also, more importantly, have my Mindset of Mommies program coming out. So I do this 2 to 3 times a year. It's a group program. We will be beginning starting March 3rd. And what it is, essentially 8 weeks of giving you the best foundation for pregnancy. It was based on getting the information for those who are interested in pregnancy, those who are currently pregnant, or those who are postpartum, thinking about getting pregnant again and just want to have a different experience. So in the Mindset of Mommies program, each week we're going to cover a different topic, from exercise to nutrition to what support looks like. So nighttime doula, lactation consultant, resources, what testing you're going to go through, as well as other people that I'd recommend you follow. It also includes a workout, so for beginners and advanced, so at home and then in the gym, 3 days a week. Then there's some pelvic floor recovery and rehab exercises in there, and prep exercises. There is also custom nutrition support by yours truly. We also have group calls. So each week we have a group call that covers the topic of the week, and I've got a plethora of resources and information for you. And then there's also a peer-to-peer support group. So kind of like a Facebook forum, I guess you could say, that we have. And so you can ask your questions in there and get support from the girls. So if this is something you're interested in, there is a link in the description below. You're also welcome to message me so that way we can get you that information. All right. See you on the next one.